Buffer, all right. And event starting. Here we go, we're live. Hey everyone, welcome to another Webflow workshop. This is episode 87. I am your host, Nelson. Thank you for joining me this week. We're veering off the rebuilds and doing our biannual check-in with our Webflow CEO, Vlad. Now, before I get him on the stream, hey everyone, welcome to another Webflow workshop. This is episode 87. I'm your host, Nelson. Thank you for joining me this week. We're veering off the rebuilds and doing our biannual check. It was me. Okay, back on it. Anyways, thank you guys for joining me. This week, we're going to be talking with Vlad Magdalin, who's the CEO of Webflow. And the last time we got to talk to him was back in December 2016. And we talked a lot about the past and future of Webflow. And now we get to check in with him again. And if you have any questions, go ahead and start putting them into the live chat room. Vlad will answer them as best he can. And let me get him on the stream right now. Hey, Vlad.
Hey, everyone.
Yeah, so this is the man. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, good. I mean, the company has grown so much. I mean, you have been so busy. I don't know how you get from 3 employees to, are we over 30 or something now, or?
We're close to 40 now, yeah.
Wow. How do you keep it all together? That is just amazing.
I manage it all in Webflow. I have like a little CMS file with everybody who works on Webflow. Yeah, makes it easy.
Awesome. So you dog food it with the whole company as well. Okay, I see how it works. All right, so I know that a lot of people are going to start asking some very common questions, and I just want to get these out of the way. The first thing that's on people's mind is Interactions 2.0. Ever since December, people have been asking about it. When is it coming out? I signed up for beta. When can I start playing with it? There's so many cool toys I want to play with in Interactions 2.0. So, can you please give us an update on that feature?
Wait, what's Interactions 2.0?
Oh, okay. It's that one thing where you...
Yeah, just joking. Yeah, no, it's been a hugely requested feature, and we announced sort of the broad strokes of that feature last year. And we've been really, really busy building it. And I think everybody would love to hear that over 90% of the code that will ship with Interactions 2.0 is already in Webflow in production. It's just we do a pretty good job of hiding it while we're doing all the QA testing and finishing up the later features. So we're 100% complete on all of the components that are required to make Interactions 2.0 happen, like all the UI that you use to specify the interactions. And we're pretty much done with the engine that runs all of the animations that the interactions specify. And now we're doing like the final bit of glue that glues everything together. Wow. And we have sort of the happy path that's already running in that some people have played around with on the Webflow canvas. It's just we're not yet comfortable with opening it up to people external to the company to play around with. But we're shooting for an alpha to start at the end of this month, and the beta invites will start going out starting early in August. So and that's going to be a rolling type of beta where first we're going to let in a handful of people, then 100 people, and then more and more as we gain more confidence in the feature working. It's going to be behind a beta flag where you're going to we're not going to guarantee that it's not going to break everything. So ideally, people are going to play around on some test sites, and believe me, like some of the things that are possible with Interactions 2.0 are going to be pretty intense. Where we have to be mindful of page load speed and like just so many animations happening at the same time with just browsers not being able to handle it. So we're going to be pretty careful in rolling it out as a beta. But August is going to be a big month where a lot more people are going to be actually playing around with the real thing.
Nice, nice.
Yeah,
August.
it's our the majority of our engineering going on right now is in two buckets. One is what we discussed last time, this big move to React and refactoring to enable plugins and components. And the other team is Interactions 2.0, and it's full steam ahead. It's really exciting to see all the demos internally of what's already possible with Interactions 2.0. So the fact that we're going to be hitting, we're shooting for an alpha at the end of this month is really, really encouraging. Like just everything I've seen so far shows that we're on track to really hit it out of the park when it comes to early fall.
Nice. I think you've made a lot of people happy hearing that. You guys, you got a date. Mercury Waters is asking for a date, so there it is. There it is. And Alex is doing a backflip right now. I'm not sure how you can do a backflip while typing. That's amazing. All right, second thing that's on the wish list. If you haven't seen the wish list, it's wishlist.webflow.com. Cross-site copy-paste. I know you've talked about this in the past. Where are we with that?
Yeah, so that was heavily dependent on this refactoring that we're doing to move our entire architecture to be more future-proof, to enable plugins and components. So that is, so cross-site copy-paste is still in development. It has a lot of dependencies on this transition to what we call the new canvas, which is also shooting to complete by the end of this month. So we don't have any dates specifically yet for cross-site copy-paste because it has this big dependency on that switchover. But it is one of our top 3 priorities right now on our roadmap. And the other thing that made cross-site copy-paste a bit more complicated was that one of the features that we're about to release is site search, which makes it possible to search your entire website without having to integrate anything external like SwiftType or any tools like that. That required a ton of consolidation with how we do what we call dynamic binding, or like linking to dynamic content, which you'll sort of recognize if you use our CMS a lot, the little dynamic list or collection list that you drag in. And then you can like add elements and bind them to the CMS. So site search ended up using that same UX paradigm for pulling in this dynamic content that comes from a search query. And it made it really, really flexible in the sense that you can take like the search result page and make it look however you want. Just design it however you want using the same exact UX principles as we employ in the CMS dynamic list, kind of in the way that works. And that required a lot of underlying architecture changes, which impact cross-site copy-paste. So we had to make sure to stabilize that first. And we're getting very close to code complete with site search right now, where we're, again, no firm dates on a launch yet, but we're shooting for a mid-August timeframe. If everything goes well, if all of our QA and engineering goes well. But that also delayed cross-site copy-paste a bit. But we're hoping once those 2 things are out in production, this refactor and site search, then we'll be full steam ahead on getting cross-project copy-paste done. And we also had to make some other considerations with cross-project copy-paste, because now we're thinking sort of longer term in how we're going to get people to design in components to make our symbols a lot more powerful, where they can take properties and you can build like real components with Webflow, like entire style systems, entire style guides. And we had to really take that design into consideration when trying to future-proof something like cross-site copy-paste. Wow. So it's all in the works. I know it's kind of frustrating to not hear exact dates where it's like, okay, here's the exact date that we're going to ship something. But with software development, especially with something as complicated as Webflow, the choice would come down to, okay, you get an exact date, but then you might get something really buggy that could break your project. And we just can't risk that. So what we do is a more methodical approach where we roll it out to some alpha testers, then we go a little bit wider, where we enable it behind a feature flag and ask more people to use it in their production projects. And then that informs our final full launch date, which then we have confidence around. But we really don't want to risk, especially with now over 100,000 like live projects in Webflow. Like, people really rely on Webflow to be production grade. We can't risk just burning the midnight oil just to ship a feature that can break things that people rely on.
Yeah, quality over quantity. That's what makes Webflow one of those great apps. So,
well, it's the best when you can get both, right?
Yeah.
Quantity and quality. We're shooting for that, of course.
It's a hard balance. It's a hard balance. And a lot of people who've been always asking for those big things, Interactions 2.0, Crosssite, copy-paste, and search, you've been asking for it for many months. And just like Vlad said, it's one of those things that we got to get right, and we want to make sure that we give quality features rather than just trying to rush something out. Last thing that I want to ask before I open it up to the live chat is components. And I think that's going to be a huge game changer for Webflow, because back in December, you kind of talked about how components could work inside of Webflow, and how like the background video or the Google map, when you drag that in, that's basically a component that was made in-house. So is there any progress on that for user-made components?
So there's two different paths that we're taking. We actually separated what we call components that are inside of Webflow. These are like built with code, things like slider, navbar, etc. We're working a few more like CSS Grid, dynamic list, all these kind of more complicated components. Those we actually call plugins, and we're working towards a framework where everything that you see in Webflow and sort of the add tab is a plugin that a developer, like a really experienced developer, creates on top of our design system and works in sort of all the UI elements, all the configuration elements that go into specifying how that plugin functions. So think of a slider and how long it takes to transition, and how whether it displays two things on mobile, side by side, etc., or like the easing between different slides, sliding in and out. That kind of thing is we're creating a framework internally for developers to be able to create more of those plugins. And you can see from our wish list, some of the highest requested ones are photo galleries that are CMS backed. Then there's a ton of other like types of really reusable types of plugins that you can see across the web, like you can see in Bootstrap and all these other types of frameworks. So that is, I think, always going to be developer driven, where a few developers will be able to create all the complicated code that goes into that and make them available in Webflow. Those are sort of like the building blocks. The second path is, and these are kind of parallel, is what we call user components. And if you're familiar with Webflow symbols or with how you build a collection list in Webflow, you have sort of an idea of what a user component might be. And a user component, like one way to describe it is some element that might have some hierarchy inside. So maybe you have like a hero component that has an image and some hero text and a paragraph. That you can think of as a component that you've created. Right now in Webflow, what you can do is, once you've created one of those, is turn them into a symbol, which means that exact symbol can be reused many times on different sites. But that use case is pretty limited, because that means it has to be that exact same symbol, that exact copy of the component in every place that it's used. Yeah. So it's helpful for things like headers, nav bars, footers, etc., or things that get reused a lot. Mm-hmm. But it sort of falls apart when you need to have a component that's reusable in different contexts with different content. So if I had something like a hero component and I wanted to add it to the home page, the about page, and the contact us page, but have a different image, have a different header, or like headline text or different paragraph text, you're kind of out of luck with Webflow right now, and you have to basically copy paste and then make all those changes. But if you happen to change the order of, let's say, the image and the text on different pages, you have to go to every single page and make that change.
Yeah.
So what we imagine for user components is the ability to essentially make our symbols a lot more powerful, give them the ability to add parameters. So that way, once you've created a component, you can, once you drag it into somewhere, you can override certain elements inside of that component with new values. Yes. And we're thinking of it in a way that is very compatible with dynamic data. It's exactly as sketch symbols, but with sketch symbols, you have this the ability to actually type in overrides or parameters in the sidebar. But with Webflow, we want to make it even more powerful and make those parameters automatically connectable to CMS content should you have it. So for example, if you drag in a component into a dynamic list or in a dynamic page, you could automatically sort of choose where those properties will come from given the current dynamic item or the page dynamic this like collection item that you're on or the collection list item that you're in. So if you had, you know, a generic component like project detail or something like that, and you had a project CMS item, you could drop that into a static page and provide those components provide those value overrides manually, or you could just drag that into a dynamic collection or collection list and connect all of these properties to the way that you can connect nodes to a CMS item today in Webflow. And that will really move us towards a more component-driven development model where you think of CSS classes and properties and all those things at the component level, where they're namespace to that component, and you really don't have to worry much around, you know, global collisions, CSS classes sort of conflicting across many different components where you change one component and another one breaks, while still preserving Webflow's ability to make these like global types of changes, you know, changing the body text color and margin and padding of, you know, like headings and things like that. And we see that as kind of moving towards a more scalable way to build like really complicated websites and design systems and style guides and eventually applications. So pretty much all of the style guides that you see being built today with like HTML and CSS and JavaScript, we hope that that's something that'll be possible for a digital designer without any coding skills to be able to do in Webflow and do it properly, where that component is properly isolated and you can like press a button and have that be live. And if you want, you can actually see, you know, the React code being generated or like the stylus code, how it gets generated by the designer working on that component. So it's, again, two parallel paths, but they're like very mutually related because all of the changes on our plugin API that we're working on benefit our user component sort of eventual system that we're going to create. And it's going to like add to the power from both sides. Both developers will be empowered to create like way more complicated plugins for Webflow, and designers will be able to create entire design systems and push them to production in Webflow.
Wow. There's a lot of stuff to take in from that, and I was just imagining what I would do with that kind of power. I know that there's times when I want to drag in a symbol, and next thing you know, there's just this one little thing I need to edit on that page, but not all the other pages, so I have to unlink it, and then it just starts to get complicated. But man, lot of great stuff, and we haven't even got questions from the live chat room. And speaking of that, there is a lot of questions. Thank you guys so much. There's a lot of people in here. All right, let's take some questions. Let's see here. No, you've already answered that one. The Spencer, I love the idea of having personal design systems where I can grab components from one site or a boilerplate and paste it into a different project. So already answered. Let's see here.
Oh, by the way, there's a question about breakpoints for interactions. Interaction 2.0 will support being able to change interactions on a breakpoint basis.
Oh, yes. I know a lot of people are waiting for that one. Let's see here. Events calendar plugin. So I'm guessing that falls under what you've already talked about, where developers can create something very complicated like an events calendar and just release it to designers to just drag in.
Yeah, that's the idea with the plugin API, is to make it possible to do things like that. Because right now, Webflow is, or up to this point, since Webflow started as kind of like a basic site builder, like a Weebly, Wix type of idea initially, where we weren't really thinking about plugins or being able to extend the system. We're just trying to move as fast as possible. But the idea behind this plugin system is for all sorts of, any sort of like component that you see on a website that reflects some data source or is just purely static, would be possible in this plugin system. So for example, something like a calendar plugin, we would not expect like every Webflow user to be able to go and create their own calendar plugin and do like all the Flex layout or CSS Grid layout and all the interactions in JavaScript custom code to make that happen. What we want is one or a series of plugins that are built by a core developer or a set of developers, and that developer, she or he can like keep extending that plugin to provide all the sort of functionality that let's say calendar plugin needs. And the designer will then use sort of like the settings panel or the visual aspect, the visual configuration of that plugin to configure, what dates, day of the week the calendar starts on, or whether the dates come from like the CMS, etc.
So it'll.
And we do plan to have a marketplace around these things, but we are not sure when. We first want to make sure that the plugin API is really solid, and I think it's going to be a kind of a phased rollout. To first, we're going to have a few, mostly it's internal Webflow developers, then we're going to expand it to a few other developers and so on and so forth. And once we have kind of like an ecosystem or a budding ecosystem of, or once we have confidence around that plugin surface, then we can start building a marketplace around it.
Nice. Sounds like a good future. Another topic, and I've wondered this myself. James Patton is asking, plans to support more features for SVG. For example, changing an SVG icon with just the font color, without having to change the embed code.
Oh, good question. We don't have any immediate plans right now on our product roadmap, but that sounds like a pretty small thing. I think SVGs have like this current color property that can just inherit the text color that cascades or that inherits down. So that could be like a small change, but a big win for people who need that. I think that's something that I've just heard a lot of discussion internally around that same concept, because we use SVG icons for the Webflow UI, and we have multiple themes where it's like the editor is the light theme, the designer is the dark theme. They use the same exact components and the same icons, but they pass the color via like a property. So that's definitely something that we should look into.
Nice. I've had that problem just this weekend with my own personal site, and I'm like, do I have to upload another SVG just to change color? So that would be really awesome for a lot of people. Another good question. Where was it? Oh yeah, Jason Rose. Form uploads or binding forms to the CMS editor, a way to upload like we can upload PDFs into Asset Manager, but what about for the CMS editor, or at least forms that we custom built in Webflow?
So we have a version 1.1 of our file upload feature coming up in the next few months, where you will be able to create a new attachment type of CMS field in the CMS, where anybody in the editor or in the data manager and the designer will be able to upload a PDF and then link to it from like a detail page or a dynamic list or something like that. So that's phase one, where you can upload PDFs in the data manager. It's not user-based upload, right? It's not like a form where you publish on a user site and then you ask for an upload like a PDF. That's something that we're still considering. And honestly, like that's something we need more research around to see what people really need. Like, is it PDFs, or because sometimes when we started talking to users, they expect something on the order of like entire applications, right? Like a user type of system where you're submitting user submitted content, and then there's like server-side logic to process that, put into the CMS. That's a little more complex than we're moving into in kind of the short term. So we need to understand like the main use case that people care about with uploading files via forms on published sites. If that's just like PDFs or little things like upload screenshots to report a bug or something like that, that's certainly something that's a lot more doable than a full sort of robust data-bound application where like a form submission will go into the CMS, will then show on, reflect on the page, on the published page, etc. I think we're a little far away from that, even though we do imagine Webflow moving closer and closer to application building, but we're still very much in the like really robust website creation space. Like we still have a lot of things to solve, like multi-language sites and e-commerce, etc., before we get into full-on app building, like user-based system mode.
Yeah. So this question I really like. It's from Harold, and he's asking, is there any way in the future to set certain rights for CMS users? For example, this page can be edited by this content editor, but not these other pages.
Yeah, so user permissions in the editor, like the ability to lock down publishing by certain collection types. We're actually starting to take the editor a lot more seriously. We're in evaluating our 12-month product roadmap, the editor has come up a lot in terms of sort of being, I don't want to say ignored, but a lot of the features that Webflow has launched have been more on the designer side versus the working with the client, because we're more closely working with all the designers and freelancers, and then they sort of work with, or you all sort of work with clients one-on-one to teach them the editor, how it works and everything. But we're seeing a lot more people start to spend way more time in the editor than in the designer, which makes sense because once you launch a really complicated site, and a lot of startups, a lot of big companies that have started using Webflow as their main CMS, that's where those kinds of things break down. You have like multiple people stepping on each other's toes, not really being sure like who's responsible for publishing. So we are doing research into what is kind of the MVP around user-based control and like these publishing workflows in the editor, to bring that much closer to the editorial workflow versus the design workflow, where you have a lot more people working on content and potentially not clobbering the site. Like, for example, if a designer is working on a new design of a site and somebody is working on the editor doesn't know that, but then publishes a new blog post, and then that brings along the changes to the homepage that the designer might not have known are ready to go. We are looking into adding a lot better tools. They're probably not going to be like Sitecore level or even WordPress level tools where you have like crazy, a lot of really, really robust types of publishing tools. But we are moving in that direction where we want Webflow to be, on the editor side, to be everything that an editing or editorial team needs to push content through to production without making a mistake, making it hard to make a mistake.
Let's see here. The extend. Oh, can I hear myself on your speakers? Okay. Let's just keep going. The question from Alex is: any plans to extend hosted file types like CSS and JS files into Webflow?
So yes, but not. We don't have any timelines for that. What we started with when we did the file hosting feature is we made a survey of all of our users, and well, not all of our users, everybody on the wish list for file uploads, and we kind of put it into buckets, the most popular file types. And HTML, CSS, and JavaScript were really pretty small compared to PDFs and Word documents and spreadsheets, things like that, like text files. So we're still kind of evaluating how much benefit that has. I definitely know as a developer that would be amazing to add to Webflow. We're just a little bit worried about how much that would lead to things like hot linking or working, I guess, to cover up some of the problems with Webflow. So imagine something like custom styles, right? We'd rather add the ability in the style tab to add custom CSS properties that Webflow doesn't support, the ones that we haven't yet implemented in the UI. Add the ability to add those individually versus make it like add to the standard workflow of being able to upload a CSS file and then add it to the style sheet somehow. That could lead to some pretty crazy conflicts. So we're being pretty careful in making that kind of like a first class feature where HTML and CSS is easily uploadable. But it's definitely not out of the question. Like, I think that's something where I think the initial hesitation I remember from our engineers was like, if we actually load the JavaScript, if we allow people to upload the JavaScript, the expectation is going to be that we can load it into the designer so that it actually executes. But because that has all of, has access to webflow.com, your cookie, etc., then we run the danger of somebody just saying, hey, upload, on the forum or something, upload this file to your site to make something work, but then have that end up being like a malicious JavaScript file or whatever. Yeah. So right now we're kind of keeping that in like pro JavaScript land. If you're comfortable enough with doing custom hosting, there's so many solutions out there, now there's a CodePen and Dropbox is probably not a great one, but like GitHub hosting, where it's pretty straightforward to link to a JavaScript or CSS file. But it's certainly, especially with CSS, it's certainly something that we'll consider.
Okay, all right. Next one, Crusader Digital. Any thoughts around adding additional designer access to a project, or is this only a team-based feature? So I'm guessing 2 or more designers in the designer tool for one project.
At the same time, like kind of multiplayer?
Yeah, kind of like Google Docs.
Gotcha. So, you'd be surprised. We don't even support that in our team plans right now. Webflow, because you are making changes, especially on the style sheet and symbols across the entire site, it can become pretty complicated when 2 people are working at the same time, making conflicting changes. So we've deliberately not implemented that like multiplayer mode yet, although that's something that's definitely could be on the horizon, especially when that multiplayer is more in the realm of collaboration. So you have like one right user where they're making design changes or sort of like page structural changes, and some n number of users observing that happening in real time, or making like comments, or clicking on a node or some design element or some component and adding a comment that then the main designer can see. So I think that's going to be the approach initially, where there is multi-user collaboration, but only one user has write privileges. And then over time, we want to get to like real multiplayer mode, but we're not, especially with a shared style sheet where you have classes that are used across the entire site. That could get pretty complex, where I could be working on page 2 while you're working on page 1, and let's say I change all paragraphs on the site and change the padding on all of them. Yeah. That makes it a pretty contentious type of workflow where we're sort of fighting each other on what changes to make. But over time, we see us moving closer to like a development workflow where there's like ways to merge changes together, kind of like what Layer Vault used to do, or like Abstract, the new design tool that sort of uses some of these version control concepts, does. But for now, that like Webflow is still limited to a single person per project working on that project, making changes, unless you're working in the CMS, in which case we have, we allow any number of editors which can edit individual dynamic items in the CMS. But that's a much easier problem because you can sort of lock items on if somebody's working on a blog post, you can show that in the UI, like, hey, Sally's working on this blog post already. You can't save any changes to it. Yeah. So that's a little easier to make sure that you're in the same kind of like unlimited context. Whereas when you're changing a symbol that's used on 100 pages, that could be a lot more disruptive.
Yeah. Riley has a good one. CSS Grid coming soon to Webflow anytime.
Yes. I can't say exactly when, but we're already well into the design process. It looks amazing. Like, me as a developer, it took me a long time to wrap my head around CSS Grid. I know a lot of people say it's a lot simpler than using a framework, but if you look at the CSS Grid spec and look at all the tutorials that are out there, it's really, really complex. So what we're aiming for is a completely visual CSS Grid builder where you get all of the power without all of the syntax wrangling that you would have in code-based CSS Grid. So we're taking it sort of step by step. We already have a kind of majored all of our designs in place, and we have some prototypes. And we're getting some feedback from some of the top CSS Grid influencers out there who are kind of promoting this code-based approach, and getting their input on what we could be missing. And then that will then move on to development in our new plugin API. So it itself will be a plugin that can be attached to almost any Webflow component. Like if you wanted to organize a dynamic collection by CSS Grid semantics, or if you wanted to organize your tabs that way, or a photo gallery or whatever. And the big idea with CSS Grid is that we are decoupling now those grid-related styling changes from traditional Webflow CSS classes. So Grid is kind of like so unique that usually you don't want to reuse those between multiple grid layouts. You kind of want your grid to be, very tactile, where you can on the canvas like resize your gutters and add numbers of columns and move elements between columns and switch to breakpoints and change that layout across breakpoints. You don't really, there really isn't much to share between two very distinct layouts. So it also like really speeds up workflow because you don't have to worry about grid-related CSS kind of being mixed in with your other style-related CSS classes.
Wow, sounds.
So that's actually one of the most exciting features that's on the horizon for me, because it brings such power to, like, it essentially turns digital designers, like people who are used to having all this creative power in like magazine layout. You buy 100 magazines, they all look different, and they all have like these crazy cool, grid-like and all these like layouts that are really innovative and fresh, and pick up the same magazine from 20 years ago, it looks totally different. It's not like in these 3 columns or 4 columns that we've sort of been stuck with in Bootstrap land, and even with Webflow's current grid system. So that's something that's going to bring a lot of creative freedom to web layout, and I think that's something that is going to really change the game for us.
Nice. It sounds more, you're hyping it to be more fun than Flexbox. I thought Flexbox was cool and it's fun, but now it just seems more, Grid seems more flexible than Flexbox.
Well, Grid is actually, Flexbox is a subset of Grid. You can think of Flexbox as like one row of a grid, but you can't like really tie 2 Flexbox rows to each other. So if you have like 4 items or 5 items, you can't really tell them to respect a grid unless you're providing like explicit widths. But Grid is that it makes one-dimensional Flexbox 2-dimensional and adds a lot more power to that. But the cool thing about Grid is that it can be very tactile. Like it's very visual. Like you don't have to go to the sidebar and specify your flex properties. You literally like make a grid on the canvas and you drag things around, and that makes your layout. So you're in this more like direct manipulation mode, and that's possible with Grid because it's got like this clean API around just having grids of things.
Nice. Very excited. Thank you, Riley, for that question. Joss is asking, any sort of note system or annotations where editors, clients, or designers can leave notes for other designers?
Yes, so we actually have something like that already designed. We just haven't put it on the roadmap yet. It hasn't reached that like critical priority that overrides user components, plugin system, site search, Interactions 2.0. But it's certainly something that we've been hearing more and more as bigger teams have started using Webflow, where like even internally we build everything with Webflow. We have probably close to 1,000 pages now on Webflow across all of our sites, if not more. And it's really hard to collaborate on these large sites, especially when you're making design changes. So annotations is certainly something that is like a duh feature for us. It just has to happen. We just don't know exactly when, given the team that we have right now, and who we can afford to hire. It just hasn't like reached that critical, it has to be done now type of priority.
All right.
But it's certainly going to happen in the future. Like I can guarantee that.
Nice. That would be really awesome. I know a lot of times when a client would screenshot the whole thing, put it into a PDF, and then leave little notes on these elements, and it's like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool if you can just directly put it inside Webflow? So that's going to be fun. This is a good one from Nicola. He's asking, when will the client CMS, I'm guessing the CMS editor, be localized for different languages?
So there's two parts to that. There's internationalization, which means the actual UI in the editor is available in multiple languages other than English. And then what I think is more pressing for a lot of people is the, here, let me check here on our wish list, is the ability to create multi-language sites in Webflow in the CMS. So what that means, that's localization. So that's the ability to create if I have a blog post, for example, every field in that blog post will now have multiple variants, one for each language that you want to provide. And that's something that is in our top 10 roadmap items for the next 12 months. That's something that is a core feature of a lot of more powerful CMS systems, and it's something that we're already engineering for. All of our CMS items already, like all the textual content, already has the infrastructure in place to provide translations or localized keys. For that content. We just have to work through the actual implementation of the UI in the data manager and the editor to provide those localizations and to figure out how the routing will work when you actually visit the site. Like, does it mean website.com/language key/whatever URL, or is it in the query string, or is it somehow like we have to provide some plugins to choose a language and then it sticks with you as like a cookie or something like that. So if you are interested in that, actually go to our wish list. So that's just wishlist.webflow.com, and there's a multi-language sites item in there, and make sure you're upvote that, because we're going to be sending out a survey to everybody there to figure out more around which use cases we need to solve as like the 80%. Like what are the vast majority of people looking for? So because we would prefer to launch something smaller but faster versus trying to like rebuild everything that WordPress or Sitecore can do with like multi-language plugins. So if you're interested in that feature, make sure you're on that wish list item, and then we'll have a chance to get your input before we scope out exactly how that capability is built out. But our intention with it is to make localization a first-class citizen in the CMS, where you would only have one item, but that item, let's say a blog post or any sort of CMS item, whether it's a project or event or whatever, and then you'll have the ability to create localized variants of all that content. And then have the ability to create customized detail pages for those languages. So for example, if one of your languages is right to left versus left to right, then you can still provide when you're on a route for that RTL language, you would be able to change your design on that detail page in order to fit that language or reading mode.
Nice, nice. Let's get a couple more questions. Here's a small one. Where is it? I forgot who asked it, but will there be more? You love San Francisco. Will there be more HTML tags added? For example, ABBR, or I know that there's some that aren't being used yet. Where is it? Antonio's asking that. Yeah.
Yeah, we should bring those up in the forum possibly, or in the wish list, because we have the capability to add new tags as long as they're like block level tags. I think the last time we updated those was years ago, so it's certainly like a pretty quick change to be able to add that tag type.
Okay. And here's another easy one. Spencer's asking for a light UI for the designer. So can we switch between dark and light?
We are working towards that in the way that we're creating all of our components. So we have this concept of a themable component, like a theme kind of from top down passes colors and things that reflect how the component renders, mostly for the difference between the editor, which is light, and the designer, which is dark. But it's not, I don't know exactly when we'll make that when all of our components will be transferred over into that new themable workflow, or that new paradigm, to where we'll be able to provide like a switch between the two. So for the time being, it's I think it's something that we're probably going to be, if you really like light theme, you're going to have to put up with the dark theme for a while. But it's certainly something that is getting to be more possible with the way that we're writing all of our UI components.
Okay. I think that's all. Okay. Ian is asking, did you speak about React? Are there any plans for React?
So our new, I guess we need a clarification of what plans mean, but all of Webflow is now based on React in terms of both the things you see in the designer, like all of the Webflow UI, as well as, which we're transitioning towards by the end of this month, everything that you see even in the canvas and how things get rendered on the server. So what you're actually creating in Webflow are a bunch of like nested React components. Most people don't know that, but it's those components that are then used on.
Oh no, did we lose Vlad? We lost Vlad. No. Let me tell him. I need to call you back. The call dropped. I really wanted to get to that other question too. Sorry guys. I'm not sure what's up. Is the stream still going? Let me know if the stream is still going. I really want to know too, a mobile editor version for the CMS. Is the stream still going? Okay, so I'm still on. It's no, Vlad. No. Looking at my screen. Come back. No, come back. We still have 9 minutes. I can. No, hello, Vlad. Oh man. Let's see here. Okay. Yes. Thanks. Yeah. I don't know what happened to Vlad. Yes, it's fine. I see you. Maybe it's YouTube. No, YouTube is still working because you guys can still see me, and I'm seeing the live chat room. It's Slack. We were using a Slack call, but okay. Vlad says, "Can you call me back?" All right, hold on. Let me try this real quick. Let me go here. Can you call me back? Let's see if I can get him back. All right, calling him. He loves San Francisco, just not the internet. All right. Need to get off of... Okay, he's off of D&D mode. Let's try this again. Calling him. He's back. Vlad?
Hey.
Okay, so got you back. So you were talking about React. Let me see if I can get you back on the screen real quick. Go like that. Let me see here real quick. Screen. Slack call. Ah, yes, you're back. Yay. Okay. Cool. So, let's get. We have about 7 minutes left, so let's get 2 questions in. So you were talking about React components, and yeah, and that's when your internet died.
Yeah, I think I was saying we're buying Facebook, so we're gonna get React as part of. I'm just kidding. Yeah, so React is sort of a first-class citizen now in Webflow because all plugins are written with React and all of the end components end up being implemented in React. So that gives us a lot of flexibility to kind of use the ecosystem around React and make development much faster.
Nice. Last 2 questions. Josh is asking, mobile CMS editor. Now we've seen this in the Chuck commercial, and yep. He's editing his site on his phone. So is that something that's coming in the future?
Yes, it is. That's one of those overpromise, underdeliver. Let's add it to the ad script real quick because we're sure we're going to get it in time. But certainly has presented a lot more challenges than we anticipated. So that's something that's definitely going to be one of the editor improvements. Don't know exactly when that's going to ship, but that's the plan, especially as we make the editor a lot more robust and a lot more people start using it, which has sort of been the trend. More people using the editor, that growing faster than people using the designer, which makes sense because each designer has more clients and bringing on 1 to 2 clients a month, and then those having multiple people on their teams. So yeah, it's really important. Don't have a timeline yet for when that's going to be done, but it's going to be a must pretty soon.
Nice, that would be awesome. Last one, and this is a tough one. Okay, Marius is asking, will Webflow websites work on my Netscape?
I believe they already do because we ship a little shim to make sure HTML5 tags work there. The question I have for you is, what computer are you running that Netscape still works? Or if Netscape comes back, then for sure we'll support it. But yeah, make sure you're asking the important questions, guys.
I missed that Netscape dragon.
Oh, yeah, we're also working on the blink tag support, and we're going to be bringing in a marquee tag to have those little scrolling effects across the bottom.
Nice.
We might be rebranding as GeoCities as well, so that might be on the horizon.
So is that the real Interactions 2.0? We're just adding blink and marquee, and that's what we've been working on for the past.
That's 90% of what people need, right?
Awesome.
Actually, no, that's about 85. I think we also need Comic Sans.
Actually, that's already in the designer, right?
Yep.
Just
there's a little cheat code.
No one has found it yet. Huh?
Should I give it away?
How long has it been in production? It's been a couple of months now?
Oh, no, it's been years. So let me give you this hint. If you're, let's see, how do I phrase this? If you have ever played Doom, using the same techniques that you would use in Doom could give you God mode in Webflow.
There he goes. I think you've said enough, and people will find it. If you do find it and you want to share it, like, tell people on Twitter or on the forums, and let people know how to get Comic Sans. It is the God mode of Webflow.
That's about the extent of that mode, by the way.
Yeah.
So go with you.
All right. Thank you so much, Vlad. Is there anything else you want to say to people who are watching you live or people who are watching this recording before you head back to work?
Yeah, the next 12 months are really the culmination of a lot of the work we've been doing in the last 12 months, where the last 12 months have been, you could see from the outside where it's easy to say like Webflow hasn't shipped much or hasn't made many improvements, and that's an understandable viewpoint given the amount of things that we shipped. Flexbox not included. It hasn't been like a game-changing type of a year like when we launched the CMS and interactions, etc. But the work that we have been doing is really, really foundational. That makes us move much faster as a team, and helps us build like these truly groundbreaking features. And the next 12 months are going to bear the fruits of that labor. And a lot of that is really front loaded in the next 6 months. So I'm super excited to get a lot of that stuff queued up and out to you guys. And it's really intense to see the team's excitement around getting those things out, and like this kind of quiet anticipation of being able to get back into feature release mode. And it's about to happen with site search and Interactions 2.0 and soon behind that CSS Grid, etc., where we're building on these amazing foundations that we took the time to create in the last 12 months. And I hope you all see the result of that. And we're going to be a lot more active on our wish list, where we're going to be treating that as one of our main communication channels with the community to see what you all are looking for to add to the product and better solve problems for you and make your life easier. So make sure that you're getting involved in that community. We're gonna spend a lot more time as a product team. We're hiring out more product managers and more product designers to be in those conversations. We started a program called Follow Me Homes, where we spend a lot more time with agencies and freelancers and businesses to understand more of what they need and how to better support their workflows. And all of that is going to translate to a much better product, a more stable product, and a faster release cycle that hopefully over time becomes more and more predictable as we start to get these major foundational pieces in place, and then focus more on filling in the gaps. So I'm the next few months especially, and then the next 12 months is going to be really exciting in terms of product launches. And you'll see Webflow moving more and more towards this all-in-one web design platform, where you can build your entire web design business on top of it, or entire marketing stack, where your entire marketing team can run Webflow, moving closer to even entire products built in Webflow, entire style guides and systems, etc. Especially as we round out our like CSS-based features like CSS Grid, etc. So the next year is going to be really exciting, and I'm looking forward to this next check-in 6 months from now, where we should have shipped a ton of stuff, including Interactions 2.0, and just seeing all the incredible things that are created with that. So yeah, it's good times ahead, and I'm really super excited. I hope you guys are too.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, Vlad. If your question wasn't answered, just go ahead and post it on the forums, and maybe Vlad will get in there, or one of the employees at Webflow. And again, thank you so much, Vlad, for this awesome product. You and Sergi and Bryant have come a long way since Y Combinator. So thank you so much for unlocking the power of designers to design some awesome stuff. And we'll see you in the next 6 months.
Sounds great.
See ya.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Awesome. Wow, that's a lot of stuff to take in. Let's summarize real quick. Interactions 2.0. If you weren't here at the beginning, I already asked that. That was my first question, because I know you guys have been asking me that almost every workshop, and I wish I could have gave you a date, but it's best if it comes from Vlad instead of me. And he said that alpha testing internally is starting at the end of this month, and a beta rollout is happening next month in August. So it's going to start off with 100 invites, and it's going to roll to even more invites and more to sometime in the fall. We're just going to release it out publicly to everyone sometime in the fall. So that's going to be fun. Site search in cross-site copy-paste. So I'm looking at right here. Oops, hold on. Let me see if I can pull that up. Okay, cool. So this is our wish list, wishlist.webflow.com. And this is where you can put in your wish for a future Webflow feature. And cross-site copy-paste and search functionality. Those are our two most popular features that people really, really want. So we are working on it, and I think he said sometime in August, search is coming, and then same thing with cross-site copy-paste. So that's going to be fun, because finally you can make a search, but bind it to a certain collection. Oh man, that's going to be so cool, and a lot of stuff. So someone asked in the chat room if I can summarize everything. So what I do in the Webflow workshops page, webflow.com/workshops, is I have a summary of questions asked or topics I touch on. And I also put the time code, so you can click on the time and go straight to that question. So I'll be doing that this afternoon, and hopefully getting it done for you all shortly. Anything else? I think you guys got all of your questions answered. Thank you again to everyone who's in the live chat room. Let's go through our regular closing. Yeah, so if you want to follow us on social media, it's facebook.com/webflow, or on Twitter, it's @webflowapp, or you can follow Vlad at callmevlad, or you can follow me at the Pixel Geek. If you have any account, billing, or technical questions, please email the support team. Go to help.webflow.com. Let me see here. Let me go to Help Center real quick. Yeah, so help.webflow.com, and you can click on this Contact Support button and just fill in the details. And also, if you have a screenshot, go ahead and attach those too, and we'll respond as fast as we can. Also, if you have any design questions, go to forum.webflow.com. The wonderful community there, global community, wants to help you with your project. So if you have a question about design or custom code, ask it there and someone will answer it. What else? Anything else that I miss? I think that's about it. Yeah, you guys were awesome. This has been fun. I will see you next week. What's happening next week? Let me see if I can pull up the Uh, real quick. Try to get getting the schedule. So we now have a schedule of workshops planned. So making this even better. Let me get that up. Okay. Oh, Vlad is still in the chat room. Yeah, answering questions. That's how much he loves you guys. That is so awesome. Let's see here. Ah, okay, cool. So the creator of the designership, the Slack community there, thedesignership.com, also created a Bucket app. Let me see if I can bring it up. Bucketapp.com. All right, let me bring that up real quick. Oh, right there. Cool. So an all-in-one screen capture and recording app. It's a Chrome extension, and this page is really cute. And it really explains the extension really well. And this is something we can totally rebuild in Webflow. But here's the thing. As cute as it is, let's take a step further and add interactions to it. You know, like these things, these right here can like slide out from the center, as well as these right here. This, I can, oh, I've done the thing, remember with MailChimp, they had a custom timed interaction where like each thing would do a thing, and yeah, it was just a timeline of animations. Maybe we can do that with this to further explain this Chrome extension. And yeah, scroll interactions would show up here. And yeah, and even more fun, I can imagine this little bucket right here, kind of, when you hover over it, it kind of, you know, wiggles left and right. So that'll be fun. So join me next week. If this is your first time at the stream, thank you so much for joining me. This stream happens every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time over at webflow.com/workshops. Thank you so much. I will see you next week for episode 88. And as always, make the web beautiful. See ya.